Hey everyone, happy August 6th, Saturday. And this is Morandom Topics. Today was my free day, so I got to eat whatever I want. My weight was at the lowest it's been in a long time, so that's cool. So I felt kind of validated eating like roast pork over rice with mac salad, and I had some lumpia, and I had a smoothie, kind of sugary smoothie, and then I had a half a pizza and like 2 Cokes, like a bunch of bad stuff basically. But I had some good stuff. I had some fruit and some things I can't normally eat, but all in all, it's been a good day. About to go get some dinner, and I wanted to record this really quick while I'm here in the car again because it's windy outside, and at home it's too warm to do this, and I'm in the car, it's air conditioned, it feels good. So today I was going to talk a little bit about my web design process because it's changed a lot over the time I've been doing web design. Back when I first started doing it, I didn't really have a method. Of course, back then I didn't use WordPress. I didn't do a lot of things I do now. So for example now, well, back when I first started, I used this thing called GeoCities, which a lot of you may or may not have heard of. And I created a site on there, and I didn't know anything about it or how to do it. It was a lot of point and click and drag and stuff. And in order to figure it out, I taught myself HTML so I could figure out how to put things on the page and where they go, this markup language. A lot of designing in tables. A lot of the first versions of the jetly.com website were on tables. And I remember like the first time I saw a website that was styled completely in CSS, I was like, oh my god, that's crazy. This guy Stefan, he showed it to me. MAHALO, I think is his last name, and we were both like, whoa, that's really crazy. How'd they do that? It's like, he showed me the site and he said, take a look at the site, and I took a look at it, and he says they didn't use any tables on this site, and I was like, what? How'd they do that? How'd they place the things in the so we looked, and it was like, oh, CSS, what the heck is CSS? Like, I barely knew. I was working professionally as a web designer, and I didn't know what CSS was. Of course, this is like, 2000. That's before CSS really kind of took off for a lot of people. So my process was always talk to the person, find out what they want on their website, and then start going into like high fidelity mock-ups of the website. So right into Photoshop, start mocking things up. And that process usually took a long time because there are a lot of core fundamental things about the website they needed that I didn't figure out first. So I was just doing like really, and because I love playing in Photoshop, so that was the fun part for me, designing it all, and then figuring out how to build it in tables and HTML, and I didn't use CSS back then. And so my process, and then building the static website basically, because I didn't use content management systems until, I don't know, 2008, 7 or 8. I tried to build one myself around 2003 in PHP, and that was really painful, so I decided not to do that anymore. So it was around 2005 or 6 when I was living in China. I started playing around with early versions of Mambo and WordPress and checking those out as blogging systems. I was using Blogger for a while, just for my own sites, just to try things out and see what they're like. When I was 2008, when I was in the US doing some websites, I did one in Joomla for a client, and that was okay, but I found Joomla to be really just not very user-friendly, and styling was really challenging and complex, and I didn't know CSS very well back then. Not that I'm an expert, but I know it better now. And then it was around, I guess, 2008 or 9. I think 2008 was the last time I did a static site for someone, and that did not go well at all. It was kind of a bad client experience. They didn't pay me. And I built this website, and like really quickly I was like up all night. So I went on to 2008-9 is when I started really getting more into WordPress and seeing the capabilities that it had. And when I was after I got married and I moved to Xi'an, and I was living there, that's when I really started playing around with WordPress a lot more as a content management system, and then figuring out how to style things and seeing all these things that were available. So I built a lot more WordPress sites from about 2008 and on. And now I have a very specific process. So even then, like 2011 or 12, I remember I was doing a website for a client in Xi'an, and even then, I did like a grayscale mock-up, like a wireframe they call it. I did a basic wireframe first, just like this is where the content will go on the page, and then I went into high fidelity mock-ups. But that process still took a long time because it's really hard to communicate in mock-ups, believe it or not, when you don't have the content on the site really worked out specifically. So sorry, I know this is shaking. I actually got a selfie stick today, but it's at home, so I apologize, my hand is shaking. So that process is just really painful. So I signed up this past year. I got this course called WP Elevation. So if you go to WPElevation.com, they do like 3 intakes a year for this course. And I did the intake earlier this year, and it totally changed the way that I bring on clients and I do websites. So the very last pre-WP Elevation website I just finished recently. And it took a lot longer because of that process. Whereas another website that I'm doing for someone else post WP Elevation, I'm able to chunk out much faster. So the process I use now, for those of you doing WordPress websites, this might be helpful. The process I do now is that I don't go right into mock-ups or design. In fact, design is one of the later things I do. The first thing I do, which I've done for a long time, is to create a sitemap, but it's a sort of a sitemap on the web so they can see the relationship between pages. So you start from a very big picture view first. So you see the whole sitemap of where things are, just the general blocks of types of content on the website. Then I go into an interactive prototype, and I use Beaver Builder, which is a page building software for WordPress, and I create just really grayscale, chunky looking pages that just filler content, filler images, like for placement only. So it's very ugly, and that's intentional because I don't want them to focus on the design. The fonts are just like Helvetica, that's just Arial standard type of font. The colors are all either white, black, or gray. The images are like the same 2 or 3 black and white images just used over and over again. And it's all lorem ipsum, like the Latin kind of text. So the content they can't really think about, and they can't really think about the design. All they can look at is where do things go on the page. So that process is much easier to work out than the design process, because this actually is more beneficial. And I'll use a house analogy in a minute, but it's much more beneficial. So we get through that whole grayscale mock-up stage, but it's all interactive because it's actually on a website. So they have this, I have this staging site that they check out, and they go in there and they can click around on the different pages. They can scroll up and down. The website is essentially skeleton built out, so they can see the whole website there. And then they can really comment on, so yeah, I think this image, these things need to be lower on the page. I don't like where this is. Maybe we can move this up, and let's put this on this page over here, and on that page let's move this over here, and that one's a little text heavy, let's put this down. So it's really easy to just move things around in blocks on different pages and get the whole thing, and build templates for design layouts on specific pages. Like if there's a series of case studies on the site, I don't have to create a page for every case study. I just do one that's a template, and then when we actually do the case studies, I can duplicate that page out and build it out. It's just much easier. So once that's completed, and that's sort of like a point of no return, once they've agreed on the prototype of the website, which is that grayscale, ugly looking but functional and gives you the layout of the site presentation, then we go into the high fidelity stuff. And then I go into Photoshop, and I just do a screen grab of the whole pages of all the website. I bring them into Photoshop, and then I go in there and make them look like really fly, right? I make them look really good and really pretty. And it's way easier to do that process now because all the stuff on the website is, the layout's completely figured out. I don't have to do any of that in Photoshop. I just have to make it look good, right? So it's like taking a house that's just walls, plaster, ceiling, there's no furniture, there's no paint, there's no art, there's no appliances, nothing, and it's going into the house, and like you're laying out all the things you want in the house to make it look the way you want it to look. It's really cool. And by this point, I've gotten to know the client a little better too, so I know what their aesthetic preferences are, and they've had the chance over this whole process to give me all the input they can on what they want the website to look like. So it's way easier to design at this stage than it would be earlier when I don't really know them that well or what they're looking for. So Then we do the design phase, and that's much quicker too. Once they agree on the design, and we have that, like they give approval on that, point of no return again, then I implement. And then it's just a matter of CSSing up the thing. And I use two tools for that. One is the Beaver Builder plugin, and that allows me to get like 80% of the way to a finished thing. So I can add in background images, do certain scrolling things, change the font across the site, you know, those kind of things. The big main structural design changes I can make in Beaver Builder, you know, padding and margins and all that stuff. And then I go in with a plugin called CSS Hero that I have a license for. Premium plugin, but it's awesome because it lets you go in and style very specific elements, and everything about that element you can style in CSS Hero. So super cool. And afterwards you can actually grab all the CSS that you created from CSS Hero for each page, and then go into the style sheet on that theme and stick it on the style sheet, so you don't actually have to have CSS Hero running on the site to affect those changes, which is great. So even if you don't, you can take CSS Hero off the website once you hand it over to the client, because they don't need that, obviously, because they're not going to be mucking around in CSS usually. So that's really great. And then the final thing with the websites that is really handy is I use this service called Video User Manual, which is combined with some other software, but I created a whole back-end sort of editor-only interface, so that most of the problem with WordPress is that there's so many complicated functionality in there that most clients don't need to know if they want to update their website. So I'm able to create a login for them that dumbs down the interface to the point where it not dumbs down, but it simplifies the interface, so that all they get is like, here's how you post something, here's a post, a page, media, your user account, and that's it. And so they can just manipulate things on the page very easily, and that's all they have to worry about. They can see their analytics, and that's it. The cool thing is the Video User Manual, it embeds an entire video user manual of how to use WordPress. So everything you need to know how to use WordPress is embedded into the site, and that plugin is updated automatically whenever there's a new version of WordPress comes out. So super cool, right? That's totally worth it. So I don't have to train them. All I have to do is show them the basics, and then show them where that information exists on the website, so they can go in there anytime they need to and refresh their memory on how to do stuff, which is really cool. And they can bring someone on and train that person on how to use the website. So it takes all the training, all the headaches of training, because usually you'll get people saying, hey, yeah, could you help me with something, because I don't remember how to change an image. And so you just say, well, you remember there's the whole Video User Manual in there. If you just go to the image video, it'll show you exactly how to do that in like 3 minutes, and you can get that done. You know, super easy things like that. My whole workflow for creating websites has changed. It's way more efficient now, able to get websites out much faster, and in a way that makes the client a lot happier, because I'm creating a website that they really want versus one I think they want, right? So anyway, I just wanted to share that. It's kind of cool how when we really practice the skill, our methodology with it changes over time. So, I mean, I was never terrible at design, but my approach and my systems for design are getting much better, and I'm able to integrate that into my business too. So I'm getting to the point now where I've started documenting my specific ways of doing website design, and it's very similar to the WP Elevation system, but I still have my own specific ways of doing things that are a little bit different than what they teach. But I use what they taught as sort of a blueprint for reapproaching my web design methodology, which is really fun, and I'm kind of geeking out on it. And a lot of you who watch this, of the 3 of you who watch this, probably one of you will be interested, but and I might be that person. But I just wanted to catalog it here just so I could get that out and talk a little bit about how that's something that's I've been thinking a lot about, because I went to that business conference here at the college where I'm parked, and it got me thinking a lot about my systems and processes for my business on the administrative and accounting and other side, but also on the production side of things and client interfacing and things like that. So there's some exciting things going on with my business. I'm changing some things around, and I'm really excited about it, and it's kind of getting me a little more on fire and jazzed up. So can't wait to see how things progress and grow, and I'm looking forward to really working on that over the next year. And also, of course, school starting in like two weeks, and that'll be exciting to get started on too. Hopefully the classes don't kill me. I'm taking 4 classes, but I don't think any of them are going to be too strenuous. they're still lower division classes, so it's not too crazy. But it's been 15 minutes. That's enough time for today. Hope you all having an awesome weekend. Be happy, be good, take care of each other. You guys rock, and always remember, keep on keeping on. Boom.